Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Q&A for June 2025. As per usual, I asked you for questions, and here are the answers. Our first question is from Not Oof Legacy, who says, what are your thoughts on the recent influx of Roblox games that use the retro art style, stud texture, references to those old times, etc.? Do you think the style is being a bit overdone, or do you think it's cool? Genuinely curious as to your thoughts on this because it's become a recently contentious topic within the Roblox community. Now, as a lot of you know, I am completely out of the loop when it comes to the quote-unquote Roblox community. So I had no idea that this was a thing, and I bet you I've pissed off a fair amount of people in some of my recent videos where I was talking about games with the quote-unquote classic art style. And, well, here's my opinion on that in case you're curious. I'm not a big graphics guy. I never have been. And a lot of the time when it comes to Roblox, I think that particle effects and such like that can get overdone to the point where you can't actually see what's going on in the game anymore, and that can be problematic. To me personally, I generally prefer a more simplistic art style so that way I can see what's going on. It doesn't mean that the game can't be flashy or have its flashy effects, but if I'm unable to see, then that's probably going to be an issue. The other thing about Roblox as a platform itself is that it doesn't usually directly lend itself to a very high fidelity graphic based game. And so no matter how hyper realistic your textures are, when you have block guys running around, it doesn't look very good. It just looks out of place. And some games on the platform have tried to remedy this by using some of the systems on Roblox to make it so that way your avatar is not a block guy. And you can look at games like Frontlines for a good example of how it's technically possible to pull this stuff off, but generally speaking, it's going to be a lot easier for people to go for a more classic Roblox art style. And the reason that is really simple. It's the way that the game was designed. There's a reason all of the games back in the day used to look like this, and it's because it was basically the only option back then. So if there is a whole bunch of controversy surrounding how people choose to make their games look, that's a little concerning to me because I think we have a whole lot bigger problems right now than whether or not all the games look like quote-unquote classic Roblox. I'm a lot more worried about whether or not the games are actually any good, not what they look like. And I don't think that games just automatically get a pass because, ooh, they've got the classic art style. No, the game still has to be good, otherwise I'm not going to be happy with it, and graphics can only go so far to help or hurt a game. If a game looks like shit and it's tons of fun to play, then I'm probably going to play it because it's tons of fun to play. And vice versa, if a game looks incredible but it's boring, then I'm not going to bother because it's boring. I've been this way since, well, forever. Not just on Roblox, in general. When it comes to graphical fidelity, I really just don't care, and it's why when I go back to a lot of these classic games that I like to talk about on my channel, I barely, if ever, mention the graphics part of the game because it just doesn't matter to me. I only care if the game is enjoyable. The next question is from X Factors, and they say, Eclipse, I know you've said many times that Woken is one of the best games Roblox has to offer and a very fun experience, but we all know its updates and player count have been lackluster recently. What would Woken need to fix to become one of the platform's top performing games again, and maybe have you play it again? Well, I don't know how to answer this because, like I said in many of my videos, I am not a huge Woken player in terms of like logging on constantly and playing every update. I played a whole lot for when I was making my videos on the game. I exhausted pretty much everything that I wanted to do with the game. I was content with what I had done, and then I stopped playing. I treated Woken more like I would a single-player RPG game, where once I'm done with it, I'm just sort of done with it. And the thing that I've been trying to explain to people on the front of Woken is that while games can technically quote-unquote last forever, I don't think every game is meant to. And while the people behind Woken obviously want to continue their game for as long as they can so they can continue to make money off of it, for me personally, I'm pretty much done with the game. I know that there are people who will continuously come to me with the deep Woken stuff because there's tons of people out there who either just getting into it or have been consistently playing it and just play and play and play and play. And that's fine. If you're one of those people, power to you. I'm glad you enjoy playing your games like that. But for me, I mean, I'm pretty much wrapped up. I got W rank. I had beaten all of the bosses except for one at the time of me playing. I think since then they've added one. So there are 2 bosses in the game PvE-wise, I believe, that I haven't beaten. PvP doesn't interest me at all. And because of that, the build making for PvP and really PvE, it doesn't matter a whole lot. So at the end of the day, as a mostly PvE focused player, I'm sort of tapped out. I think if they finally went ahead and added a new Luminant to the game, that would probably bring me back to at the very least check it out, because that would be a really large update that could keep me very interested. And I think there's a lot of stuff that they potentially could have been doing to extend my interest in the game personally, but they're not catering to people like me. They're catering to people like, well, the people who are still playing the game right now. So the people who are super invested in the PvP aspect for the most part, when it comes to adding new weapons that they can use and new systems that they can use and all this different stuff. And I don't have any problems with that. If that's the user base that they want to continue to make updates for, then that's all well and good, because it's easier for them to do that. And I mean, I'm not judging, that's fine. So I guess my technical answer to you would be, if they ever go ahead and add a new Luminant to the game and I can get back in and actually explore things again and feel like I'm finding things for myself and find little neat areas of the game and that kind of deal, that would interest me. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there is a saving the game, because I don't ever think that the game was bad to begin with. I do think that they should listen to their community more. I don't know if that's improved since I left. I made several videos about it because they would just ignore people, but I mean, there's only so much I can do on that front. Exalzali, I probably pronounced that wrong. They say, do you like any 2D fighters? For example, Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, King of Fighters, etc. And the answer for this one is a big ol' hard no. The thing you have to understand about me is that I am a widely casual player of video games in terms of how I like to enjoy them. And I know that might sound ass backwards considering a lot of the ways that I cover games and the things I talk about in games, but at the end of the day, I don't like to be extremely stressed out when I'm playing my video games. And in fairness, there can be good types of stressed out and bad types of stressed out. And when it comes to these hyper-competitive 1v1 2D fighting games, that stresses me the hell out, and I do not like it at all. There's a reason that I really enjoy the Battlefield series, for example, and it's because in games like that, because there's so many people running around and playing the game, I can get absolutely crushed, still play well, feel like I helped, and even if we lose, it's not the end of the world. If I tried to bring that same mindset to a 1v1 fighting game, I would probably lose my mind, because it's all about climbing the ranks and elo, learning all of this different tech and all these combos, and it's just way too much to put towards what to me is just sort of endlessly trying to get to the top of the podium that I'll never reach. I don't think it's impossible for there to be games that are made that abide by some of the rules that 2D fighters apply themselves with, but still be fun in a more casual setting. But generally speaking, games like Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, etc. do not abide by that by any stretch of the imagination, and I do not have the patience nor the mental fortitude to get into those games. I think they're a lot of fun to watch, and I have an immense amount of respect for the people who are good at them and the people who do enjoy them, but me personally, not at all. EXVox7358 asked several questions, and I was going to skip them, but I liked most of them, so you get away with it this time. Anyways, I'll go one by one. The first was, at this stage of your channel, you are very notorious for your brutal honesty when reviewing games. How do you mentally prepare yourself before recording a large requested game that you know will piss off a lot of people? Well, that's always the worst. Literally, it is always the worst thing that happens to me when I'm doing this channel and I'm making my videos, is when I play a game that a whole bunch of people want me to play, and my general consensus on the game is that I did not enjoy it. And it's even worse when I didn't enjoy it a lot. Because 90% of the time when I put out videos that are on games that are largely requested, I already know that people are going to get pissed off and they're going to get mad, and we're going to have a daily dose of stupid on our hands. But there's really not a whole lot that I can do to try to stop those people from having that reaction. I can guarantee you that even if I'd played a lot of these games for tens of hours before making my video and still coming out with a lot of the same complaints, it would not matter. Because the thing that you have to understand about Roblox is that it's predominantly just catered towards kids. Surprise, surprise. And kids do not like it at all when you tell them that the thing that they like is not as good as they think it is. And they will defend that thing to the death, no matter what is being said about it and no matter how much credit those arguments might have. And the more that I've done this and the more I've understood that, the easier it becomes to deal with this kind of stuff, because I can dismiss a lot of the things that are being sent my way as an understanding that the people who are sending these things aren't really thinking them through. They're just lashing out because they're angry, and if they actually read them back in a week or two, they probably would be a lot less mean. But really, I think what it comes down to most of the time is I've been doing this for long enough that I've got thick enough skin that, generally speaking, I can just brush off a lot of the just blatant personal attacks and people being mean for the sake of being mean. And the things that always really get to me, I think I've mentioned this before, are the people who are like, well, I've been watching you since XYZ, but now because of this take, I'm not going to watch your videos anymore. And sometimes I see stuff like that and it just frustrates me to no end, because a lot of the times the things that I'm saying in these games that they like are the same kinds of things that I've been saying for years, and I guess the people just selectively ignored me saying it about these other games, but then when I say it about their favorite game, then they get mad. I will never understand that, but I try to ignore it, I guess, is the best answer for this one. Now, as for the second question, they say, where do you see your channel heading in the future? Do you plan to consistently upload reviews to games, or do you have any plans such as dev interviews or deep dives that you can share with us? Well, as of right now, the state of the channel is sort of in limbo. I've got some things that I want to get done by like the end of roughly this year, so I've got a bunch of things that I'm working on behind the scenes, but generally speaking, the channel is going to be relatively static, I think, continuing with what I'm doing right now. In terms of dev interviews and things like that, I think the thing that a lot of people don't understand about my channel is just how breakneck pace a lot of the things are in terms of how it gets produced, and why a lot of it is not as well researched as people would hope it would be. I've explained this in a different video. I think maybe it was in a comment, I can't remember. But at the end of the day, when I'm putting videos together, I don't have, like, strictly just don't have the time to be putting 10 hours into every single game. No, it was definitely a YouTube comment. Now I'm remembering. So I don't strictly have the time to be putting 10 hours into every single one of these games that I'm talking about, and then I have to put together a script potentially, and then I need to record the video, and all of this in order to get 3 videos out a week is just not realistic unless I just throw away everything else in my life, and then I have no time to do anything for myself, which is extremely unhealthy, and it's how I was running my channel when I initially started it, and I started popping off, and it ruined me. It was really bad. There's a lot of things that happened during that period of my life that I regret a lot, and I don't want that to happen again. And so the same sort of thing goes like with people in terms of if I wanted to talk to a developer after playing their game, for example, which is something that I've gotten flack for in the past. Like, why didn't you reach out to the person behind this game? Which I don't think I'll understand in of itself. I shouldn't have to talk to the person behind the game before I make my video on the thing they made. But even if I did want to do that, I would have to reach out to this person and hope that they had the time in their day in order to talk to me at some point within like a day and a half max of me asking them to make sure that I keep on schedule, or delay the video and then work overtime in order to make sure that something got out in the next day. And I think you start to see the problem here. In terms of game reviews itself, I haven't done one in a long time. I want to, and I probably will on Metal Gear Rising. I'll get around to it maybe eventually, I hope. The fourth question says, when you're writing a review on a game, do you ever soften/sharpen any criticism you have in accordance to how you think us viewers will react? No, definitely not. My videos are what they are, and I simply speak from my heart when I make them. If I had to take into consideration how people would react to my videos before I made them, then they wouldn't be genuine and there would be no point of me making them, in my opinion. This was probably my favorite thing on here, which was the fifth question he had, which was, has making your review/critique content changed the way you view games as you play them casually when not recording for a video, and has making this sort of content ruined the way you enjoy a game? I think this is a fantastic question, mostly because it's 100% true in terms of it has totally changed the way that I see games. Making my videos has absolutely changed the way that I look at games when I play them, because I was always relatively critical thinking when it came to looking at the games that I played, but never nearly to the degree that I am now, and never nearly to the degree of like understanding the design philosophy behind a lot of the things that are done, as well as actually understanding potentially how and why things are happening the way they are. I think I was a lot more casual in terms of the consuming of media back then than I am now, and it's completely changed the way that I look at games when I play them. There's always this sort of critical lens in terms of gameplay flow and just trying to put myself in the shoes of the developers while they were putting the game together that I think makes me enjoy games probably more than I did before. Because now, rather than just playing the game in order to look at it as something fun to play, I look at it as not only something fun to play, but also almost sort of a puzzle, in a sense, to see how the game was created and what the thought process was while they were creating it. Now that said, sometimes it also leads to frustration because I'll see something and I'll just be like, how in God's name, when they were putting this together, did they think it was okay? And that absolutely happens sometimes. But for the most part, I think that my general way of looking at games has changed drastically for the better rather than for the worse. So no, I wouldn't go nearly as far as to say that it's ruined the way that I enjoy games. Quite the opposite in a lot of ways. And then of course, the last question is, what's your favorite game that's bad on paper but still an absolute blast to play? I don't know about absolute blast to play, but definitely the game that I played the most that I thought was fun back in the day, but now I probably wouldn't boot it up unless someone threatened me, and that would be Escape from Tarkov. On paper, that game is horrendous. In practice, I played it for 3,000 hours, and it's one of my most played games ever. Maybe someday I'll do a big deep dive into Tarkov and all of the just glaring flaws it has, because at the end of the day, nowadays, all of the people that are playing it are so Stockholm syndromed in that they're mostly incapable of seeing the just huge flaws that the game has that makes it basically unplayable if you don't have all of this ridiculous amount of knowledge that you need to Google. It's a mess. Anyways, moving on from the big multi question, and we get to a question from OK Rain Hunter, who says, I was watching an old vid of yours, I forgot the title, but it was a list of your top games, and you mentioned liking Skyrim a lot, so I'm wondering if you are fond of, or at least played the Fallout games, since it's also Bethesda and is pretty similar to the Elder Scrolls. Fallout is a series that I never really could get into, but I have a bit of an interesting history with it, so I guess I'll list it off now. I've only ever played 2 Fallout games technically, and one of them I want to play but just never got around to it. Fallout 4 was the first real one that I played, and I went into it expecting Skyrim with guns, because that's what I'd heard. And it kind of delivered on that. But at the end of the day, as someone who was a big player of first-person shooter games, I went in for mostly the gameplay of the game. And while Fallout 4's gameplay is not bad per se, it doesn't really hold a super great candle to like a lot of the first-person shooter games that I was playing. And that's because at the end of the day, Fallout is not meant to be a first-person shooter necessarily, it's supposed to be a role-playing game. And nowadays I know all about the criticism for Fallout 4, and a lot of people don't like it because it's not as much of an RPG as the older games and all that kind of deal. But when I went into it, like I said, I was going in and I wanted this like shooter experience, and I just sort of didn't get that. I got bored pretty quickly, and I haven't completed the game nor really played it since. Now, the other game that I played is, drumroll please, Fallout 76. Yeah, so Fallout 76 actually had me pretty excited when it was announced. I was like, that sounds really cool. A big open world map type shooter where like it's sort of like a less hardcore version of a big DayZ kind of game, and I was like, that sounds awesome. And then it came out, and it was a complete dumpster fire. And because it was a complete dumpster fire, they were practically giving it away like 3 weeks after launch. I think I got the thing for less than $10 within a month of it releasing. And so I was like, well, how bad could it be? And I logged in, and I played for probably an hour and said, yeah, okay, this is very obviously not for me. I'm out of here. And I have not played it since. But the thing is that while Fallout 4 is something that I played way long ago, I'd probably enjoy the Fallout games in general a lot more now because I've got a lot more patience and a lot more experience in the sort of RPG genre and enjoying those types of games. It's because of that I really want to get around to playing Fallout New Vegas, a game that someone actually gifted to me years ago, and they wanted me to play it. If I remember correctly, they basically said, whether you make a video or not, this game's really good, so I hope you play it. Here you go. And so I accepted the gift and then just never played it. So to whoever did that, I apologize. Maybe I'll get around to it one of these days. I'd still like to. Mr. Chaos Taco asks a really good question, which is, if a game has enough content, do you think it could justify the price tag even in early/alpha access? And this is a great question because I think it gives me a chance to answer something that I get a lot, and it's a misunderstanding, I think, from a lot of people in terms of when I talk about paid early access and the way I think it should be handled. Because, for the record, I don't think it's impossible to do a paid early access that will be free later type of deal, as long as you're actually rewarding the people who are doing your job for you with like something that will, you know, generally speaking, live up to the amount of money that they've paid to you. There's obviously a lot that goes into the considerations when going from testing a game to whatever its full release is going to be. And a lot of these developers claim that they want to limit the amount of people playing their early access releases, and so they make people pay in order to prevent that from happening and, you know, help fund development costs. But to me, I just see it as a scam because you're basically just playing the full release of the game as it's being developed, but it's going to be free later, and a lot of the time it's like, oh, here's a badge, oh, here's a title, some other manner of bullshit that isn't helpful at all and is not worth having to pay for the game before it comes out, only for it to become free later. And the thing is that lots of games in the early access genre of not Roblox have already figured this stuff out. Obviously, I've already mentioned the fact that in the vast majority of cases for early access games on a platform like Steam, for example, you can be paying for the game early, and it will cost less if you buy it early, and then as the game becomes more developed, it costs more until the full release. And so if you buy in early, you pay less. This works the exact opposite on Roblox, where you buy in early and you pay more, infinitely more in fact, because you shouldn't be having to pay at all. But other games have done something neat, which is that if the game is going to be free later and you need to pay for early access, then if you pay for the game early, then you get access to all of the DLC, for example, when it comes out after the fact. Now, granted, a lot of Roblox games don't necessarily make use of DLC. So this is the point where you have to give them some sort of incentive to having bought in early, so it just doesn't seem like they've been scammed. Something like a permanent XP boost for having bought in the game early, or permanent increase to the amount of money that you get when you bought the game early. Something to reward people for having paid for your game that's going to be free before it came out and helping you test the game. It just, like, it does not make sense. Make it make sense. You can't make it make sense. It's a terrible business practice. It needs to be denormalized immediately, and people need to stop falling for this because it's bad for everyone. NormGuy5794, who's also a channel member, so thanks for that, NormGuy, I appreciate it, says, even though there is an enormous amount of games on Roblox, do you think you may have run out of content to create on Roblox in the future? And if that happens, what would you do? Well, in a lot of ways, I think I'm almost already there. And in that, I mean, a lot of the time, I feel like I'm sort of making the same video over and over and over again with the same points because Roblox doesn't really have any intention of changing what they're doing, and Roblox developers don't have any intention of changing what they're doing. So in a sense, a lot of the time, I just make the same points over and over and over and over again, and you could borderline copy-paste a script from one video to another one, just change the title of the game, and you'd have a new video. And I don't really like the way that that is as of right now, but also until Roblox and their developers start actually doing something different, then it's probably going to remain that way. So in a lot of ways, I think this is already a fulfilled prophecy. But you're not entirely wrong in terms of just because there's a ton of games on the platform doesn't mean that I'm always going to have things to talk about, but I also think that I could pretty much scrape the bottom of the barrel at any point in order to find things that I can talk about in order to make videos on. And as it is right now, there's already things that I avoid doing directly because I think that they'll just be clone videos. So for example, Blue Lock Rivals is a game that I'll probably never cover because I already covered Basketball Zero, and Blue Lock Rivals and Basketball Zero are just going to be identical in terms of the videos that I make. So why bother making a video on basically a clone of the same game with all of the same problems just to make the same points again? It just doesn't make sense, so I haven't been doing it. In terms of a business perspective, obviously it does make sense because a lot more people play Blue Lock Rivals, so I'd get a lot more hate watchers, but that's about it. Sophisticated Supernova says, do you like the Wild West? I've enjoyed the new update for it. I didn't even know this game was still around until some people made a whole bunch of comments about it and a whole bunch of DMs about it, and yeah, I played the Wild West like ages ago. A very, very long time ago. And I had a lot of fun farting around and just messing with people. And I don't know if the game is still like that, but my main goal was to just mess with people in Wild West, and I had a great time doing that with some of my friends. So maybe I'll make a video at some point bringing some people on and making a little Wild West gang and going around and screwing with people, because that would probably be fun. But yeah, I do want to at least take a look to see, you know, what's the difference between way back when I played, because it was a really simple game and I basically just used it as an open world bullying ground a lot of the time. But at the end of the day, yeah, I do want to take a look, but I'm not sure when or if that'll even happen. And then the final question is from the Sekiro guy asking for when the Sekiro video is going to happen. Probably eventually, I don't know.